Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic: what's the dumbest thing you believed as a kid? My brother had me convinced for a while that each person had to have a unique favorite color, and since his was blue, I had to change mine. On my first day of kindergarten, we had to introduce ourselves and say our favorite color. I was super stressed out because the kids in front of me picked the good colors, and I kinda panicked and told everyone my favorite color was gray. In my family we were kind of assigned colors by my parents. My little sister and I looked like identical twins, so my parents dressed us in different colors. My older sister was much taller than us and had already chosen blue as her color, so my parents went with a Chipmunks theme. The oldest was blue like Simon, I was red for Alvin, and my little sister was green for Theodore. Anytime a family member brought us back t-shirts or dresses from their travels, we always got our color and it kind of stuck. We still all predominantly wear our colors. We're all in our late 30s and even our raincoats as adults are our colors. It's quite silly. I've only ever worn a red raincoat. When I buy a new one it's always a red one. Way to stay on brand. Turns out you were just ahead of your time. Space gray is all the rage these days. Space isn't even gray though. When I was young my parents told me that if I kept leaving the fridge open then I would freeze the whole world and then no one would like me. And then no one would like me. I'm still cackling like a fucking madman at that for some reason. Hey. There's that little asshole who froze the world. We hate him. When I was about 4, my older sister told me that since the population of Japan was so high, Japanese people slept sideways on their beds so they could fit more people on every bed. I believed it until I went to a sleepover at 13 and suggested that we sleep Japanese style on the bed so everyone could fit. This is too good. So many spoons. For some reason, I thought every car that was made had to do a crash test. Probably because my dad once told that our car had a very good rating in the crash test. I was amazed by the fact that all cars were repaired so well before being sold. I got confused at first. I was thinking you meant every model of car, rather than literally every single car. I remember asking my mother when I was a child what happens when all the numbers get to 9 on the mileage meter. She replied it will turn over. My little sister who was in the back seat piped up and exclaimed with us in it. I thought this as well. I saw some show where they were testing teddy bears by lighting them on fire and said every toy was tested. I thought everything ever was tested. Of course for some high-end stuff it has to all get tested, but I thought people were paid to play with toys and wear clothes and play video games and stuff to ensure each and every item was tested and working. And if something came broken it was the tester's fault. Not sure if this was just a UK thing, but as a child I had some of those gooey jelly alien toys that came in plastic eggs, and the big rumor on the playground at the time was, if you put a boy alien and girl alien in the same egg and put it in the fridge, they would make a new baby alien overnight. I told my parents about it and told them I was doing it. While in bed, my parents added the extra baby alien overnight. So when I woke up and found the third alien, I lost it. Went into school and told everyone. For years I swore blind it was true and really happened. It was a very heartbreaking day when I realized what had happened. Reminds me of the time when my parents would sneak miniature food items into my doll house and say that the dolls had been grocery shopping. That is incredibly sweet. But not much variety in little foods, is there? Oh, the dolls have bought some more chocolates from a box of Celebrations, I see. I didn't know cars have a turn signal lever, so I thought the car knew where we were going. I thought the car would use the arrows to tell my parents where to turn. I thought the same thing. I wondered how the heck the car knew where we were going. My parents did it tell the car where they wanted to go. I was confused. I thought that drinking and driving meant any drink. I burst into tears the first time I heard about drinking and driving. My dad always had a Dr. Pepper when we went places and I thought he was going to go to jail forever. I distinctly remember yelling at my dad after he filled up and grabbed a chocolate milk and took a sip as we drove out of the gas station. Everyone in the car started laughing at me. I just want us all not to die. Me too. I told someone my mom drinks and drives all the time, so it probably isn't that bad. Word got back to my mom about that and she was mortified. She's a Mormon and that made it even worse. I lived on an Air Force base growing up, where they check IDs to get back on base. The dare people had just been to my school. My mom had a fresh Diet Coke in her cup holder, and I was instructed to tell a trusted adult if a parent was drinking and driving, so going back on base, I spoke up to the guard checking us in. You can imagine how well that went over, and even after that ordeal, my mom still didn't explain the difference between a Coke and a beer, as she didn't want me to know anything about alcohol, so I just lived in fear that some drinks were okay and others weren't, and I didn't know how to tell the difference and if my mom would get pulled over for having a Dr. Pepper instead of a Coke one day. Like even my 2-year-old knows some drinks are only for adults and some drinks are okay for everyone. I don't think it's that hard to put into kid-friendly language. Edit. I just remembered they also talked to us about drugs and smoking and how even chew is bad, but I didn't even know what that was and they didn't explain it, so in my little sheltered brain I thought the chewy candy I got for Halloween was also bad and a drug. I'd seen cigarettes from my friends' parents so I understood that, but they didn't go into detail what chew was, so I thought anything labeled chewy was bad. Fuck dare. They made me a very paranoid kid and didn't explain things properly, just fear-marketed to kids who couldn't understand or comprehend what was being said to them. They made me afraid of candy instead of properly explaining things in a way kids could understand. My brother and I wrote letters to Santa and our dad would open up the coal furnace door and we would throw them in the fire. We believed they would go directly to the North Pole. My mom had us throw our letters in a wood fire, and when sparks came down and rested on the burning paper, those were the fire fairies and they carried the ashes to Santa where he magically reassembled them and read your letter. Relevant username. 2 gems from my youth. 1. I used to think my testicles were the eggs of my future children. Like, one day they would hatch and I'd have 2 kids. 2. I thought safe sex meant someone left their clothes on. Like your first one, I thought one actually got sent into the uterus. It just gets slurped up in there. I often got caught doing stupid stuff when I was a young rascal. When I would get home my dad would say a little birdie told him he seen me do such and such with the boys. Up until I was 8 or 9 maybe I believed my father had some sort of snitch pigeon keeping an eye on me. Edit, punctuation amendments. Snitch pigeon is my new favorite phrase. Escalator stairs were one-time use and just kinda piled up under the floor. My brother used to think that a man sat under the escalators and operated them. He also thought that man's name was James and that was his real dad. Not our dad. So every time we passed the escalators at the mall my brother would scream at our dad, "You're not my real dad. James is my real dad." What the fuck? That's so funny to me. Just all these stairs in a bin, gotta take them out to the truck and dump them the stair disposal. Blue fire was cold. Azula. Azula was pretty cold at the end of Adler. I thought homosexuals were people who only had sex at home. I mean you're not wrong, have you seen gay people having sex outside? Per second. Yes. You know those animatronic dinosaurs at museums? I knew they were robots, but as a child I was convinced that the robot was unaware of its animatronic status. I believed that if the robot wanted to, it could and would step over the barrier and eat me and everyone else. This fear was compounded when my dad more than once picked me up and pretended he would drop me down the other side of the barrier. I still remember the giant robot scorpion at a local museum when I was a kid. That thing scared the living shit out of me. That we had to change our names during different stages of our lives, like we have a toddler's name, a teenager's name and an adult's name. Timmy, Tim, Timothy. Likewise. Jimmy, Jim, Jimothy. Bobby, Rob, Robert, Bob. Makes sense. Can you imagine a newborn Linda or Patty or George? Same thing with Karen. Have you ever met a child named Karen? I'm convinced that Karen is a name that's earned, never given. I thought a baby just randomly appeared in a woman's womb. I stayed awake crying about it because I didn't want to become pregnant. I had a similar belief except I thought it happened once a woman got married. As if the body knew the woman's relationship status and decided to form a fetus. I thought pretty much the same thing but I thought it was caused by kissing. I would stay up at night thinking, but how does the woman's body know it's a married kiss and not a normal one? LMAO, I'm just imagining a little girl losing her shit over that. Same, oh my god. And at one point I somehow got the idea that stepping on grass was what made you pregnant, that there were little thorn things too small to notice in the grass, and they took years, but they traveled up to your belly and made a baby in there. But the years could depend, that's why people had babies at different ages. I was so scared that it would happen to me. That maybe I just stepped on a faulty thorn that only had like 5 years on it and I would get pregnant at 8. I had no idea where I got this idea from. Me too. Me 3, my sister said you didn't have a choice, it just happened. That dumbass is my twin, we were the same age and equally as stupid as each other, I thought she was right. That the gender of a baby depended on which person was trying harder during sex. I was told that your left and right testicles produced different gendered sperm. It depends on the color of the sugar you leave on the windowsill for the stalk. If you leave pink sugar, the stalk will deliver a girl, for boys you need blue sugar. That's true. We only had boys until my wife started pegging me. 9 months later, my daughter was born. Did she come out of your butt?